Hello everybody, today we're going to do something different. Today we're going to do Kallisto Plays Games. It's been a long time since I've done one of them, and there will be a big one about Pandemic Legacy because we are planning on finishing Pandemic Legacy Season 0 this year. We played 1 and 2 last year and then moved on to Season 0, which we're pretty much towards the end at this stage. But today I want to talk to you about something entirely different. It's a trading card game called Lorcana, which came out in 2023, and it's a Disney TCG published by Ravensburger. Now, a couple of disclaimers. Number one, I'm not a Disney princess. I haven't really watched many Disney movies. I think it was 2023 and I was these many years old when I first saw Frozen, which is okay. I actually prefer Tangled. But you know, hey, I'm slowly getting there. I will never rewatch Bambi. But of course, growing up, I would have, read the Disney books, like the stories about Pluto and, of course, as we call them, Tick, Trick and Track, or Huey, Louie and Dewey, and Donald Duck and Daisy and so on and so forth. But Disney wasn't really a thing for me. I didn't have anything Disney themed at home, not because I don't like it, but it's just, And of course, TCGs, you usually play with at least one or sometimes more opponents. And being a single gamer, a solo gamer, that was very difficult. And as you may know, I used to own a TCG called the MECG by Einen, Middle Earth card game. But when I left Ireland, I had to actually ditch all of it. It went to the bin. I know my heart's still bleeding, but hey, what can you do? But since then, things have changed, and now I actually have an opponent, and we were this close to getting into the big one that has been around for over 20 years at this stage, until the company that releases it and owns the franchise went evil. I'm not going to mention the company. Everybody who is into role-playing games knows about them, and everybody who's into TCGs knows about them as well. And we just decided we're not going to support them. Although they brought out a Lord of the Rings themed cycle, which my heart bleeds for because the cards are just so beautiful, but hey, it's not going to happen. However, last year, Ravensburger entered the playing field and said, well, we can do this too. And they started producing Lorcana. Now, I would say that Lorcana definitely is addressing a younger starting audience. I don't think that you can start with Magic the Gathering at age 8, whereas with Lorcana you can. But it's open-ended because this year, 2024, towards the end, there will be the World Championships. So they have entered into the arena of professional playing and people actually making money of it, qualifying and so on and so forth. Now, in Lorcana, since it is geared towards children or being introduced to children, you have a story narrative element, which you can look into. You don't have to, but you can. And the idea is that you, as the player, are a luminari, which means you draw. So the word illumination, illuminated manuscripts, is of the same ilk. And you basically paint things like characters, actions, and tools, and as of the most recent release, also lands. And in order to do this, you pay with ink. And much like in other card playing games like this, the payment method is also cards. So as you draw cards, you need to ensure that you have enough cards that you can use to pay for the stuff that you want to actually place on your table to bring them out. Cards have different costs. So this is also something that you're used to, even if you are playing things like the Lord of the Rings LCG or the Arkham Horror LCG. Cards are costs and you have to foot the bill somehow. And each time you draw a card that can be used as ink, you can add it to your inkwell. You can add one ink card to your inkwell once a round. So the build-up is quite slow. And it is independent of the type of card or the cost of the card if you were to play it. So if I have a very expensive card that says, oh, I'm going to need 7 dips from my inkwell to draw this to stay within the picture, it only ever counts as 1 ink. Once you decide to commit something to your inkwell, a card to your inkwell, you show it once so that you can prove to your opponent that yes, this card is inkable. Plus, you put it down, face down, and no one's ever allowed to look at it again. Apparently that's very important. You have to remember which cards you have inked, because if you have no knowledge, or if you don't have any memory of it, you may end up waiting for a card to come from your deck, which you've already inked because you got it really early in the process and you needed ink and it was too expensive to play. So this is something that people who have been playing card games like this are very familiar with. If you draw very expensive cards at the very beginning, it can be insta-death. So once you have added one, let's say, drop to your inkwell by adding 1 card in your round, you can instantaneously, even on your first round, use this 1 ink and play a 1 ink card. And when you first draw them, because again, they're staying within the theme of drawing, you put it out on the table in front of you, but you cannot use it. Usually, there are some that you can use immediately, but most of them you can't because the ink hasn't dried yet. And of course, the drop of ink or drops of ink, if it's more than 1 cost, is exhausted for this round. So you cannot actually use the same ink drop for multiple pictures, which makes sense. So on your turn, you can do this in a very interesting fashion. It's not phase oriented in that you say, I now put down my ink, then I play whatever I can onto the table if I want to, and then with the readied characters that have already dried, or with the readied cards that have already dried, the actions, the songs, or the tools, or items, I should say, or lands, you can then interact. But you can do it actually in any order you like. So it may make sense to, first of all, put down your ink because you know, usually you would do that. And then you send somebody exploring. So the idea is that, again, geared towards children, nobody dies, there is no attacking, there is no killing, but you basically go exploring, which means you exhaust your cards and you collect legend points for it. And if you reach 20 legend points, you win. So once you have sent somebody exploring, you exhaust the card, that's the mechanic, but the idea behind it is, of course, they are searching through this miracle land. And while they are searching, i.e. while they are exhausted, they can be attacked by the opponent, or actually challenged, not attacked, challenged by the opponent on their turn. However, you may want to do it this way. You exhaust your characters and send them exploring, which doesn't cost you anything. Once they are active, you can do that. But then you may have a card that you want to play, which allows you to unexhaust or ready or untap, whatever nomenclature you prefer, characters that you have. So you might want to play it now, because sometimes you have cards that you can put out, and while the ink's still drying, when you play them at that particular moment, they already have an effect. So it could be that you have a card that then allows you to unexhaust your characters, so you do it afterwards. But then there might be other cards that you have that then act with whatever other situation you have. So there is no strict phasing, as I said, but you can do all of this. Playing, exploring, challenging at any moment in your phase. And once you're done, once you've done everything you can do, or once you've decided you don't want to do anything else, the other player gets their turn. There is one thing that we were quite surprised at, we had to reread the rules. There is no hand limit. So unlike, for example, in the Lord of the Rings LCG, where you have to discard down to 6 at the end of your round, no such thing. You can have as many cards in your hand as you like. And I don't think that's normal, because usually in all of the games that I've played, even Eon's End and so on, you usually have a hand limit. But not so here. Maybe this will come in later iterations of the game, because they have been making changes to the rules. They've added the lands component. But maybe that's going to happen, or maybe not. But once you're finished, it's your opponent's turn. They do the same thing. They draw a card. Then they can decide to ink at any point in time, or convert something into ink. And then they can also decide to play characters, actions or items or lands. They can then also, if they've already got readied characters, lands, items or whatever, they can decide to go exploring, or they can decide to challenge any of your exhausted cards, and so on and so forth. And so play reverts back and forth between the players until such time as somebody reaches 20 legends. So far so good, so far so simple, but I want to point out it is simple, which doesn't mean simplistic. It's simple. Learning this game took us 10 minutes. Then there were some discussions every so often about a card text, which you will always have, and kind of go, okay, so it depends on, I see it this way. Would you agree? Because if you do agree, then it will harm you. Or would you say this is different? And this happens all the time. That's nothing to do with the rules. It's sometimes that special cards are special abilities, and then you really have to understand what those abilities are and decide how to play them. The decks themselves usually have about 60 cards. They say that you have to have a minimum of 60 cards in your deck and a maximum of whatever. I would say with 60 cards, that's plenty. You have the possibility of playing monospheric or dual spheric decks. So each sphere is, if you like, an ink color. So you've got amethyst, you've got steel, you've got ruby, and basically they go with amber, I think is one of them. I don't know what they're called in English. In German they're amethyst, stahl, etc. And each of these ink types has a different type of card, well, not type of card, but ability associated with them. So for example, there are colors there's one color which helps with deck draw. There's another color which basically has very expensive characters, but those are usually very, very powerful when it comes to collecting legends. So there, you want to be able to have very many cheap inkable cards from a different sphere that you can just turn into ink really, really quickly to build up a really, really high ink level very, very easily, so that you can start playing those high-cost cards. Since there is no hand limit, it doesn't really matter if you start drawing them in the... well, it does, but it's not as bad when you start drawing them in the very beginning, because you don't have to discard them. Then there are cards that interact with each other. So, for example, there's Huey, Louie, and Dewey, and when they are in play, if you have all three of them in play, they give you an advantage. So, for example, if you've played the LOTR, LCG, there is a dwarf chain of events in the dwarven deck that you can build that basically does the same thing. I think it's Biffer and Boffer and Bomber. If you have all three of them in play, then good things happen, things like that. So there is nothing in there that if you've ever played a TCG or an LCG would be mechanically completely weird or not sound. They're all very sound mechanics, and they all make sense. They're also quite intuitive. You can learn them really quickly. And it's all a question of building your deck. Now, how can you build the deck? Well, first of all, there are starter decks. And maybe let's just go back to the beginning. It came out in 2023 and they started with the first chapter. Now, the first chapter is now sold out in German. I think you can still get the English versions, but if you want to stick with the German version, then at the moment the first chapter is out of print. But according to the Ravensburger service website, it is going to be reprinted. They were going to reprint it in Q1. This is now the end of Q1 because it's almost Easter. It's so far not been released, but you know. Then there was the Floodborn or Flutgestalten, which came out in late 2023, which is still available in German and in English on the German market. And I think it's also available in French. And they're also moving towards the Nordics later this year, 2024. So that was chapter 2, if you like. And chapter 3, the most recent one, is Inklands or Tintenlande, which came out apparently just now. I didn't realize because I got my copies yesterday. And you can get those starter decks. They are fully playable 60 card decks, dual sphere. And you can just use them and play. And we actually chose to do this. Then there are booster packages. And the booster packs contain 12 unsorted cards, random, like you would know this from other TCGs. And, you know, you can also get a display case, which I have actually done. I've got 2 of those on order. And they cost less than 300 euros if you order them like this. It's still a lot of money, but you get, in each of these, you get 24 12-card boosters. That's a lot, because when you buy them, they're at least €6.99. So when you buy the lot, it's actually cheaper. I also saw them even cheaper in other companies online. But, you know, I don't trust them if I don't know them. Some of them had really weird reviews where it's like, yeah, well, I'm still waiting for my parcel. So I'm like, I'm going to buy it off actual Ravensburger retailers. And this means that it's, in this case, I actually bought from the Ravensburger online store just to be on the safe side. I'm supporting them. I'm pretty sure that what I'm getting isn't a knockoff that somebody printed in China, because I'm pretty sure that this is also already happening, that there are knockoffs knocking around. And basically, I got 3 boosters yesterday for the Tintenlande. I went to a shop. And I mean, basically, I'm a gamer. So I didn't stop there. At the weekend, I ordered playmats because, hey, there are playmats available from Ravensburger directly. I have to say, I don't like them. Of course, they are Disney themed because they have the rights to printing those using Disney images. But they are simply, you know, like mats. There is nothing on it. There's an image on it, which I didn't even find very inspiring. But if I'm going to pay for this, then I want it to be usable. And there is a company outside of Hamburg that prints them, not using any copyrighted material. So you will not be getting a Disney-themed Lorcana mat, but you will get a Lorcana playing mat with really beautiful images. They have plenty. I'm going to link their shop below. And I'm waiting for them. They said it's going to take about a week for them to print. And they have the legend track, so that you can always see how many legends you've already acquired. And they've got like a very small but very usable, or let's say not small, but subtle but very usable, what you call it? Well, it's kind of like a compass where you can place the different types of cards so that they are all kind of like, you know, this is where you have your discard pile, this is where you have your draw deck. And they are super nice. They look really lovely. I'm still waiting for them, and I'm going to do an unboxing. I was going to do an unboxing of the Flutgestalten, but unfortunately DHL decided not to deliver them to where they should be delivering them for me to pick up at somewhere else. So I'll have to go there tomorrow, but never mind. But anyway, to me, Lorcana is one of those games that I love, although I have only played 2 rounds of it. Why do I love it? Number one, I really love it when a company decides to be sustainable in its approach by saying, okay, we are going to create a game with which you can grow. Because it starts at 8, but you can play this until you're 88. Because it is not boring, it's not simplistic, it is simple, it is accessible, it is easily digestible. And then once you have the first, steps down, getting a child to play this is probably going to take no more than 20 minutes. They need to be able to read because they need to understand what's on the cards. But even when you start with them and start them out on a deck, you can actually tone it down and give them very simple cards. Of course, then your own deck also needs to be simple because otherwise it's not going to be a contest. But it is something where children can have easy access. They have, if you like Disney, beautiful images. I'm not a Disney person, like I said, so I'm like, okay, I don't care that much. But the quality is super. And it is, for somebody who loves Disney, and that's many, many people, completely on brand. And it is, it caters also towards the tournament player, the professional player. And only the other day I read a newspaper article about a German player who is a professional Lorcana player, apparently. And he's already just basically bought, and it was written at the beginning of March. So by then he'd already spent 4,000 euros on cards. I mean, that's not something that I would aspire to doing, but hey, then again, I just spent 300 on booster packs, so hey. But it is a game where you can get total enjoyment out of it. A gaming session takes we played one round in about 30 minutes, and we had played just 2 rounds that evening. I had won one and my partner in crime had won the other. So, and it was really so easy to see how you would build a deck because we just basically put them together randomly. They weren't the pre-made decks, but because she had also bought several boosters and then just put them together by color. And then I'd just basically taken 60 to get to 60, making sure that it's, fully in line with only 2 spheres and only 60 cards. Off we went. And it became quite clear. I mean, even so, as we were playing, we were seeing, okay, my play style is very different from her playing style. And I was like, okay, well, I already know if I were to build a deck with these cards, how I would build it, what I would put in, what I would leave out. But it's something that you can pick up so easily as you're playing. And of course, you can turn this into a complete science and sit down and go through all of the stuff that's on the internet. YouTube has a huge Lorcana trove that you can delve into. But this is where I'm going to end this video. Also, they have great online support because there is a free official Ravensburger Disney Lorcana app. And this app is really, really well done. First of all, it contains all of the cards that have ever been brought out. And you can basically say, okay, these are the cards that I have. So you basically pick the cards. You can either type in the name or you can just go by the chapter and then look at the pictures and then just pick the ones that you have. And then you make a decision how many you own and what type. Is it foil or standard? And basically then you have your own collection. I am told that it doesn't get backed up to a server. So if you switch mobiles, then the information is gone. But hey, there's always something, isn't there? And I doubt that they would be able to support having this backed up on a server because if this would have to be accessed in real time, it would be a total nightmare considering how many people are playing. So basically then you can also use this as a deck builder and say, I want to build a 60 card deck using the following 2 spheres or even just a monosphere deck. And you can choose, I want all of the cards at my disposal or I just want my collection at my disposal so that you can also see, okay, so how many of these do I actually have? And then it contains all of the rules, obviously. And it also contains a little legend counter. And the way this works is you can either use this for yourself, so you just have one counter and every time you get a legend you just click, or you can put the mobile phone between the two players and then it shows two legend counters directly opposite, and also kind of like mirror image so that I see mine and you see yours. You don't have to look upside down. And that's also very neat because that means you can also play it, for example, on a train, because you don't really need to keep those counters and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's really, really neat. And it is one of those where I say the app enhances the whole game. Unlike, for example, what Fantasy Flight Games did when they came up with this, oh, let's have everything in an app, and you get Arkham Horror in an app, you get Mansions of Madness, which you can now only play with an app, or Descent, and you kind of go, yeah, that sucks. You don't need to go online, you don't need the app, you can totally play offline, but the app is actually one where I have to say, it's so well thought out that I completely get how they did it, why they did it, and it is super easy to use. So that's how I'm going to finish this video. I may be doing an unboxing. I was going to do one today because I felt really motivated, but now my cards are somewhere on a yellow truck and going through Hamburg and it's terrible. But never mind. I wish you all a pleasant rest of the day and talk to you soon. Bye!